Well, good morning and welcome to Overdevest Nurseries. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Wilson and I'm here, as you see, in the middle of our nursery on a rather misty morning in early autumn. Now, it's a beautiful temperature, the sun's shining, I don't see a cloud in the sky, and there's hardly a breath of air moving, which means that the fragrance that's coming from these roses is carried in the air here, and that all adds obviously to the enjoyment of being outside surrounded by all of these plants. But if I seem a little weary, it's because yesterday we had an exciting event happen here on the nursery. You see, we invited plant experts, owners and key personnel from all of the partnering garden centers that are located right throughout our region. That's the mid-Atlantic and northeastern states of the US. We invited them here to preview some of the plants that are likely to be winding up in their garden centers next year. And I thought, maybe what I should do is take a few minutes this morning and take you on a little sneak peek of some of the things that we were doing yesterday, so that then when you go and visit those garden centers, you'll be able to know a little bit more about some of the things that we get up to here on the nursery on a daily basis. So come with me now and I'll show you some of the things that we were doing yesterday. And while I'm on the subject of roses, let me quickly mention that one of the highlights, without a shadow of doubt, was our David Austin trialing and testing area. There, attendees got a chance to compare varieties one with each other, to look at how they're performing right here in this area, and particularly to choose their favorites, ones that they think are going to be really good in their garden centers. Another point of interest was this row here that we've planted of newer varieties, ones that we're testing and trialing out without any spraying of fungicides or pesticides, ones that we hope are going to be able to do well in our gardens in this region. And as you see, of particular interest here were 3 new varieties that come from the Flower Carpet range. This one is Flower Carpet Blush with its lovely pink fully double flowers. And then look at this gorgeous one here that's called Flower Carpet Champagne, lightly fragrant with beautiful creamy flowers with a slightly deeper golden center to the middle of each of the blooms. But then probably one of the ones that created most interest was this lovely variety here that's called Lipstick. Now here, as you see, is a stocky, sturdy grower with beautiful dark green, glossy, disease-resistant foliage that stands up remarkably well to the likes of black spot, and then, as you see, produces these beautiful deep pink, almost light red flowers that have a very nice light fragrance as well. Meanwhile, elsewhere in our trial and testing grounds, people had a chance to look at all the other plants that we've got here under trial. And we took that a stage further because we gave them a bunch of these little flags here and asked them to go round, and if they seen something that caught their eye, something that they liked, put a flag in at that point. Now, as you see, quite a few plants have got 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4 flags. But it's interesting, when you look around here, there are certain plants that definitely caught people's eye. And then also 2 other plants that definitely caught everyone's eye were these 2 varieties of Hydrangea paniculata. The one here on my left is this beautiful variety here, which is called Hydrangea Worry-Free Ruby Snow. Compact, very free flowering, and has these sturdy stems, as you see, putting on a very nice show. And then the spectacular Worry-Free Love-A-Lot Pink with its bright white flowers when it emerges first, going through to pink, and now at this time of year with the cooler nights starting to show off a lovely deep pink, almost light red. But the thing I think that most people seem to enjoy was the displays that we set up here inside the area that we normally use as our loading dock. Now this is where we gather together the plants and put them on our trucks and then send them out to the various garden centers. But as you see, we took the plants out of the nursery and we concentrated them here in this area. In this case here, using these fabulous varieties of our native redbud, cercis varieties like this beautiful variety here, flamethrower, ruby falls, alley cat, and so on. Lots of really nice plants, as you see, that make beautiful little trees for our gardens. And then underneath them, we use some of these shade perennials just to show off how these make beautiful plants for putting in underneath shady and partially shaded areas. Plants like these autumn flowering anemones, and also some beautiful ferns that of course are wonderful for shady places. But come on and I'll show you what else we got up to. We brought in plants from all over the nursery and grouped them together here in this area in themed displays, showing off in a smaller area all of the variety of plants that we can grow in our gardens in this area. Now, as you'll see, there's all sorts of plants in here, from various types of perennials, shade-loving plants, plants that are evergreen and semi-evergreen, and plants that butterflies love. Things like this beautiful variety here of the Cascade Buddleias. This is Buddleia Violet Cascade, raised by Hans Hansen at Walter's Gardens. And one of the incredible things about this is that when we were setting up this display here in this area with all of the glass and the metal structures, we just begun to set down one or two plants, and guess what? In came butterflies. Now, how did they manage to navigate their way into the greenhouse? Somehow or other they figured out that this is where the Buddleias are, and in they came. And yesterday, when we had lots of people milling about in here, one of my colleagues noticed that here on this plant there was as many as 6 monarchs feeding on this plant all at the same time, and I see one just over there right now. So it's really interesting how some way or other Mother Nature has figured out that even if plants are in a difficult place, butterflies can still find their way to these gorgeous flowering plants. And then, of course, because hydrangeas are so popular, we simply had to use a nice selection of those. And as you look through here, you'll see that we have several sorts of the shrub type, but also some of the ones that are trained into these tree-formed ones here, which make such a lovely way of raising the eye up and giving another tier of interest. And then over here, we're showing off some of the beautiful clematis varieties that can be trained up, arbors and so on. And then underneath it, ground covering things like the coral bells and the bergenias with their large dramatic leaves. And then as you walk around here, you'll see that we have some perennials and grasses that are wonderful for growing in sunny sites too. Things like these various varieties of coreopsis. And then when I get in here, let me show you this beautiful variety of our native little blue stem. And this is one of the variegated forms that we featured here on this channel a little while ago. There's a video if you want to find out more about it. This is the little blue stem variety called chameleon that's just now beginning to take on some of its autumn coloring, so that you get, as well as the white and green variegated foliage, you get red. But then take a look at this gorgeous little ground covering phlox here. This is Phlox Blue Ribbons, a variety that was discovered by Tony Avent at Plant Delights Nurseries around about 2016. It's a variegated form of our native wild phlox, one that grows in woodland conditions right through the whole of our east coast. It's evergreen, and this variegated form turned up at his nurseries, and of course Tony, being the plantsman he is, noticed that this was a plant with great potential. And as you see, during the summertime it comes out with green and white and creamy edged leaves like this one here, and now when we're getting into cooler night conditions, it's starting to take on some of this reddish tint to the leaves. And what's more, this is evergreen, and in springtime, in the early part of the summer, it produces 6-inch high flowers that are 5 petals that sit up just floating above the foliage and are fragrant as well. A native plant, hardy, tough and reliable, and very colourful. This is a spectacular plant, as you see, and wonderful for using as ground cover and contrasting nicely with this variegated form of our also native little blue stem. So the two go well, and I used, as you see, the grass here to accentuate and add a little bit of more height to the flatness of the ground cover. And then take a look at this beauty from First Editions. This is Hypericum pumpkin with its really delightful colored seed heads that, as you can see, there's no prizes for guessing why this plant is called pumpkin. It's actually a color break in this type of Hypericum or St. John's wort. It comes out first with yellow flowers, like a lot of the St. John's worts, but as you see, then it turns into these colorful seed heads, bright orange, pumpkin orange, as you see, which makes it a wonderful plant for using in the landscape as a garden shrub. Gets to about 3 foot or so, but look at how this could make a beautiful plant for putting into Halloween and autumnal displays. So as well as using things like mums and corn stalks, why not use something like this, and it will give you a very long-lasting display. And what's more, you can use these as cut flowers too, because these seed heads last a very long time. Hardy to zone 6, semi-evergreen. It really is a spectacular plant that, as you see, we've put in here and makes a very nice addition to this part of the display. And then, of course, because everybody loves a good rose, we simply had to do a display of roses. And this is one of the neat things that we do here on the nursery, in that we cycle prune. That means that when you go along to some of the garden centers, almost at any time when a rose is going to be in flower, you should be able to find plants like this in full flower. We're continually pruning them to produce a cycle of color, and that gives us, as you see, a beautiful sweep of color, starting out with this little low spreading variety here on the front that's from Easy Elegance. This is Paint the Town with its lovely bright red flowers, rising up through here to some of the varieties that were raised in Germany. This is the Colorscape series, and then rising up even taller into the center with this spectacular variety here. This is Sunset Horizon, one that I featured elsewhere on this channel. You'll find a video that explains much more about it. And then going out through to little petite knockout over there on the side, spreading up again through some of the taller growing ones, and winding up at the back with some of the other ones that are within the Easy Elegance range. That one is Sweet Fragrance right on the end there with its bright pink flowers, and a new selection within the Knockout series, that is Knockout Coral. So lots, as you see, lots of really pretty roses on display and looking very, very nice. And then as we wind our way round the serpentine path that we use to show off all of the varieties, you'll see that there's lots of other varieties too, including some exciting new varieties that we're going to be telling you about in upcoming videos as well. And here in this section is one of our most important sections, I think. This is the worry-free range. Ones that include this little compact growing barberry here. This is Berberis crimson cutie, developed at the University of Connecticut, and eliminates any concern about them seeding into the landscape. The same goes for these worry-free varieties of Pennisetum and Miscanthus too. Varieties that again have been developed so that they are not invasive into our landscape. And of course, if you remember when we started out earlier on, I showed you a couple of very popular varieties with our attendees. They are part of the worry-free range as well. Ruby Snow with its beautiful white and now turning red flowers, and of course the spectacular variety Love-A-Lot Pink, selected and put into the worry-free range because they're so hardy and easy to grow, and importantly have those tough sturdy stems that means the flowers sit up and put on such a nice display and don't droop over like some of the older fashioned varieties. So that's just a little glimpse of some of the plants that we had on display to show off to the people who are going to be making decisions in garden centers in your neighborhood. Plants that I hope you get a chance to go and look at and perhaps grow and enjoy in your garden too. So when you get a chance, take a look. Go in frequently throughout the year because these plants are going to be coming in at different stages throughout the season, from spring through summertime into late summer and into the fall, and give, as you see, a very pretty, very nice display. Ones that I very much hope you get a chance to enjoy in your garden. This is David Wilson. Enjoy your gardening. It's good for us, and it's very good for our environment too.